Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Stock Durbar with Team William in India. Today, May 4th, 2023. So, this is a clear disclaimer from our side. Please go through it. And in addition, whatever stocks that are discussed today, we will take you through some index in the starting first 10 minutes, and even the stocks in the later half the Q&A session is not an investment advice to buy or sell the security. It's just a knowledge sharing purpose. We will try to have our viewpoint on your questions. So that's it. Please do not consider it as an advice to buy or sell the security. Okay, so Rucha, can you confirm that the Nifty chart is visible?
Sorry?
Rushik is visible.
Nifty
It is visible, Rushik. It's clean,
thanks,
neat,
man.
and visible.
So today in the room we have our head of research Mirish Joshi and my colleague Vakar. So first we'll start with the basic some of the macros and how the Nifty is setting up. We'll take few sectors quickly, some charts over there, and then we will jump on to your questions. So we'll just take 10 to 12, 15 minutes max, and then it's all open for you. Okay, so good evening everyone again. Let's begin today's session. So by the time we are starting the session, so yesterday the event which was due, the Fed meeting was over, and the decision was in line with the market expectations, or 25 bips of rate hike. But couple of things to note from over here is that एक तो expectation थोड़ा था कि there might be some signaling of pause, but Jerome Powell didn't do it. But yes, again, he continued the same two statement, which we are hearing since I don't know, since long, I can use that word. That and he's right, I think, in the current situation, that the data driven it will be on the next meetings, and there is no anticipation of how the things will be. So everything will be based on the inflation data. Inflation is a bit sticky, that's what he was saying, and it might take some time, more time to lower the inflation. Plus, when he was being asked about the recessions, so he didn't give any clear signs around the recession, but again, the same statement which he used to give, that it will be a moderating growth environment, but there's no clear comment related to recession. And overall, if you see that the language was less hawkish in terms of a future rate hike, but there's no clear indication that it's a pause. जो हाइपोथेसिस लेके मार्केट में जो लोग चल रहे हैं कि भाई अभी पॉज आएगा तो मार्केट में क्या क्या होगा, उनके लिए अभी भी एक वो है कि there are chances that the inflation might remain and the further rate hike is not over, the cycle is not over, it might continue, maybe not in the next and after that, or even if the data of inflation remains higher, the inflation remains higher, then even in the next meeting it can be there. So this was on the Fed side. Yesterday, if you might have seen US market, no major reaction, though there was some negativity after this comment about that there was no clarifications on the rate hikes being paused or not. So market ने थोड़ा वो चीज लिया कि अभी pause नहीं हो रहा है. So some volatility on the negative side in the US market. In our market, if you can see the Nifty chart, really strong setup as far as the index is concerned. But one thing that is helping India a lot is the crude price. So I think last time when we met for this session, the crude price might be somewhere around 82, 83, and now it's 70 to $73 per barrel. And that's a huge cushion for India, because our inflation is, more or less directly linked a lot towards the crude oil prices. Also, our CAD, the higher prices of crude impact, because we are the net importers of the crude oil, and that also in a huge quantity. So अगर ये range में रहता है, 70s में रहता है, then it will be a cushion for the government, the finance ministry, for managing the fiscal deficit or the fiscal budget as well as for the RBI, because this will impact the recession. अपने लिए थोड़ा positive है, recession कम होगा, and the raw material cost of our companies. If you can see the paint companies, the cement companies, the overall petroleum related OMCs, so these all will be benefiting from the lower crude oil price. And at the end, the customer will also benefit because of the further inflation may increase नहीं होगा, and there are chances that the crude oil might remain at a bit lower level, and the prices of the fuel might also go down. So this overall is a positive scenario for the market. And you saw the reaction today, and that was a very good moment in the market. And what I liked about today, so that's really good. I think whenever the closing is in the upper half of the day's range, it's positive. And when near the day's high, it's very positive. Now, what I don't like about today's session is the volume. The volume कल जितना ही था, मतलब it was, if we consider yesterday's volume, almost 15% below average volume. So generally, अगर इतना बड़ा move आया, almost 0.8, 0.9% का move आया, 150 point of the Nifty. So in these situations, you want these moves on the higher volume. जब तक higher volume में ये move नहीं आएंगे, तब तक there might remain some missing link in some flaw, you can say, in the chart. But yeah, overall price action was superb. Volume action, the point to be noted that yeah, it was a little bit on the lower side. But overall, if you see the rally, अगर आप यहाँ पे देखें, let me annotate it for you. After this small, sideways movement, and again finding support near 200 DMA. So the way Nifty has moved, and the best part about it is every day it closed in the top quartile. डे हाई पे बंद हुआ, डे हाई पे, ठीक है, यहाँ पे ऊपर बंद, एक्सेप्ट वन सेशन अगर यहाँ पे कल थोड़ा नीचे आया था निफ्टी, बट अगेन द वॉल्यूम वाज लोअर, सो दैट्स नॉट अ प्रॉब्लम फॉर द निफ्टी. अगर लो वॉल्यूम पे नीचे जाता है देन इट्स बुलिश, बट अगर लो वॉल्यूम पे ज्यादा दिन then that is a problem. And today that's what we are looking for. And yes, since from the March and from 16,800 के जब यहाँ पे पूरी रैली है 18,200 के ऊपर चले गए, almost 1,500 points rally, right? But we have not witnessed a follow through day, and we are still waiting for a follow through day to change the market status. Though our buy switch is on since last many weeks, we have been entered some good quality names having the strong fundamentals, and that are giving decent returns. But yes, we have not marked a follow through day. So now to be in a confirm uptrend, there are two things. Either first one, we get a follow through day, that is 1.5% gain on a volume higher than previous session, या फिर second चीज जो यहाँ पे previous rally का high था, that was in the November December time, previous जो कि जब market confirm uptrend में था, that was 18,887. अगर उसको क्रॉस करता है निफ्टी, फ्रेश ऑल टाइम हाई बनाता है यहाँ से और फ्रेश 52 वीक हाई बनाता है, then we will shift the market status to a confirm uptrend. So these are the two conditions to look out for. Now we talked a lot about going higher. So on the flip side, if you can see over here, we are a bit extended from the 50 DMA. So we are 4% extended from the 50 DMA and 3% from the 200 DMA, and 21 somewhere around 2.7. So, there might be a case when Nifty might give a pullback to these key moving averages, and then again they rebound from there. But yeah, if that happens, then we lose around 3%. Even if it tests 21 DMA, around 2.5 to 3% का pullback आ सकता है. So this is how the Nifty is placed. Now, if we look at one of the key sector, that is Nifty Bank, which is having a very high weightage in the Nifty, and that is very close to its all-time high. I think today's line is not yet updated. It generally gets updated in the evenings. So if you look at the Nifty Bank, then 44,151 was the all-time high, और आज 43,700 के ऊपर का already high बना दिया. So we are just 500 points away from the 52-week high. That is just 1% from here. So So we are very close to a fresh high in the bank Nifty. And I think the way the banking results have come out, the Kotak result was excellent. The HDFC had delivered. We talked about HDFC, I think, in the last session of the stock Durbar. And the other banks, the way they have reported, the numbers have been excellent. Even the PSU banks are being able to deliver. The loan growth is good. You can say the NPAs are coming down. So it's not only the banks, but overall the financial service. Look at the result, the Chola's result that came out yesterday, and the way stock reacted to that. That was an excellent set of numbers for the NBFCs and the other financial related firms. So overall, the results have been good. Right, the fundamentals are improving, and that's what are getting reflected in the chart. There is a decent move since the March low in the Nifty Bank as well. So if you look at Nifty Auto, decent numbers, this one, but there were some mixed numbers. So growth was not that good as far as the Maruti, for the Tata Motors is concerned, but the growth in the Maruti was decent, the TVS was okay. So it was a mixed set of number for the April's auto data. And yes, overall, the auto ancillaries are also doing well because the manufacturing is on track. The demand is robust. That's not a problem. I think इस बार भी जो data है इतना भी वो problem नहीं है, but it was mixed. It was not something which was way above the estimate. It was just in line with estimate to little below estimate. So that was how the data was. So OMCs, the demand from the OMCs side is higher for the auto ancillaries as well as the replacement demand. The replacement demand is also really well for the auto ancillaries company. So the OEMs as well as the auto ancillaries doing really well. Still, there is a problem of the rural demand coming up, and that's what the two-wheelers are not, doing really well. The rebound is not that great as far as the consumption in the rural area is concerned. So already last एक दो साल से थोड़ा weak था, ऊपर से ये unseasonal rains, El Nino का prediction इस बार monsoon, not surety about how the things will go out, and that also affects the FMCG. But the urban consumption is excellent, and that's what is reflecting in the chart. Though there is a bit sluggishness in the rural consumption, but if you look at the urban consumption, that has been excellent. The numbers of the Varun beverage is superb, and even if you look at the other FMCGs companies, the Britannia, the HUL, the ITC, you can see now it's above 425, and even the last quarter's result were excellent for the ITC. So overall, it's a very good setup for the Nifty FMCG as well. It is already trading near its all-time high. If you can see, yes, since April, it has made a fresh high, and it is moving higher and higher from there. So it's a really good setup as far as the FMCG is concerned. Now, if we look at the metal index, it is trying to move higher, but still it looks technically damaged over here. So the 200 DMA started moving higher, but the index is still below 200 DMA. It had breached it in February, and after a sharp fall in the second half of January and the first half of the February, मतलब entire February 1.5 महीने तक इसका fall चला था, and from 6,900, 5,200 तक index drop हो गया था, but now it is holding a bit. Overall, the demand is coming back from the China. So pricing मिलना चाहिए वो थोड़ा HRC वगैरह का थोड़ा gradually improve हो रहा है, and even the input cost थोड़ा moderate हुआ है. So उसकी वजह से if the demand remains robust from the China, the very big market, and there is some supply crunch, then the realizations of these companies will improve. Even look at the Tata Steel result that has came. The numbers were very good. In fact, for the Jan-March quarter for the Tata Steel. But yeah, if the demand remains robust and the price remains intact, then you might see that the index can reclaim the 200 DMA and move further from there. But yes, still need to give some time to repair the damage over here. So Nifty IT, the last one we take, and then we go to your questions. So this has been a most top index since last many times because it is trading near its bottom, and I think after the result of that there is a huge gap in this chart, and that is after the result of Infosys, the huge gap, and again it tested the 26,000 level. So multiple times अगर आप देखिए लास्ट ईयर भी जून में टेस्ट किया था, फिर से जुलाई में किया था और सितंबर में किया था, ठीक है। अभी इस बार फिर से अप्रैल मई में कर रहा है ये 26,000 का लेवल। It tried couple of times to move higher, especially between the November and in the February, but it again failed to hold because जो मैक्रो ग्लोबल मैक्रो प्रॉब्लम है, ठीक है, वहाँ पे स्पेंडिंग का, टेक बजट्स का, लेऑफ्स का, दैट विल डायरेक्टली इम्पैक्ट आवर सर्विस कंपनीज, इंडियन सर्विस कंपनीज, और वहाँ पे जब ग्रोथ नहीं मिलेगा देन इट विल बी अ प्रॉब्लम फॉर आवर आईटी कंपनीज, जो कि ऑर्डर बुक improve नहीं होगा. So we are in a comfortable zone as far as the order books of our leading IT firms are concerned. But फिर भी जो growth मिलना चाहिए वो नहीं मिलेगा because of the global macros issues, especially in the Europe and the US, from where the most of the revenue for these companies come. So that is clearly visible in the chart. Here also we need some time, at least one more quarter it looks like, for most of the companies, though there are some outliers which are everywhere. So over here also there are few outliers, and but overall some time needs to be given to the sector to come. If you look at the rotation graph, इसमें थोड़ा outperforming के side जब तक नहीं जाएगा, till that time you need to wait a bit for the sector. So yeah, overall, if there is, we need to discuss some sector or some specific group, we might do it during the Q&A session, but it's better we start with your questions now. Please do not post it multiple times. We will try to answer as many as possible. So just posting it once will be fine. So me, Vakar, and Mayuresh, we will try to answer as many queries as possible. Okay, so there is a question from Amit Kumar. West Coast paper. The stock is making a stage one consolidation base. The consolidation is very healthy. If you can look since last few days, especially from last few months, you can say the consolidation is very healthy. What I like about this consolidation is that the stock is getting support near its 200 DM. 200 DM support in there, that is one thing. The second important thing is the volume. You can see the volume has not been higher on the down days, and that's something very positive. Third good thing about this chart is the relative strength line. The relative strength line has been really strong. So even today it's 72, right? And if you can see the basic fundamentals, the number of fund has improved a lot in the last quarter. The ROE is decent, not a problem. And if you look at the earnings, that has been robust. The sales growth ko dekhe, earnings ko dekhe. Last 3 quarters, you can say last 4-5 quarters, the earning has been really, really strong. I think once this consolidation is completed, and when it gives breakout, then these are the type of quality stocks that needs to be the part of your watch list. But I think aggressive entry, early entry, not a good idea, because since long it has been moving sideways and need some trigger. So when it moves technically higher, that's the best time to go for the stock. Otherwise, the stage one base is something really good that you need to look for. So it was trading in a stage three base in the September, October, but वहां से हायर स्टेट बेस से थोड़ा फेल हुआ ये एक दिन के लिए ब्रेकआउट दिया था फिर फेल हुआ वहां से एंड नाउ इट इज मेकिंग अ फ्रेश बेस. Let it give the time it wants to complete the base formation, and then keep watching for the stock. Next, let's take IRCTC. the stock is off lows, almost 12 to 13% of its recent lows. You can say 52-week lows, but still it is trading below its 200-day moving averages. Once it reclaims the 200-day moving average, the first focus will be on the completing the base, that is the stage one consolidation base. And so yeah, I think if a fresh buy, then according to O'Neill methodology, you need to wait for breakout or at least the 200 DMA reclaim, as even if you are a very aggressive investor. But if you are already holding the stock, then the stock has been off closed, and you can use basically the 50 DMA as a stop loss level. And yes, just don't use 50 DMA the price wise, but also look at the volume. So if it is breaching 50 DMA on the higher volume, then it's always better to be away from that stock or exit the stock. But sometimes it happens that for 1 or 2 sessions, low volume पे 50 DMA breach हुआ वापस ले ली. Then in that situation, you need to hold your nose. You need to be very agile during that period, especially whenever the stock is moving near its key moving averages. And that's what, as a team also, every time whenever our portfolio stock is near the pivot, or if we already have in our portfolio and it is near key moving averages, you need to be, you always need to be agile in the market, but especially इस time पे बहुत active रहना पड़ता है, and you need to manage your positions accordingly. But yes, it still needs some time to it's concerned.
Rushit, Vakaria, can I take some queries? Hello.
Yes, sure.
Yeah. Rushit, can you give me the chart for Allcargo? So the stock did came under some selling pressure, and currently it's trying to probably re-break out. It's trading like 5% below the pivot at the moment. So I mean, in the last couple of days, the move was pretty erratic. But I mean, uh, what could have been better for the stock is I mean, when the stock is moving higher, the volume should have been above average, which has not been the case. And even the last result I mean, the December quarter result for the stock wasn't that good, and that is probably getting reflected in the price volume action as well. So, I mean, the last time it tried to break out from flat base, it wasn't really successful, as you can see. And post that, I mean, for making lows at around 233 levels, it's trying to probably rebound back or regain back. But probably at this moment, your fund holding is kind of mixed at the moment in a declining spree. So let it probably re-break out, and re-break out on above average volumes is what we would like to see for this stock. And probably 1 quarter or 2 quarter good results is what is required for the stock to probably fire up back once again. The other we can look at Sanghvi movers, then ABB. So relatively smaller market cap stock, if you look at it, around 1,800 crores, still qualifies. And even the fund holding for the stock is improving at the moment. All the parameters is really good. Your EPS strength is good. Your price, your RS rating is good. Sorry, your RS line is moving higher as well. The stock broke out successfully. Currently, it's trading above the ideal buy range. That is the blue band that we talk about. So, I mean, fresh entry into the stock at this price is not advisable. Probably let it go through some kind of consolidation, or probably come back to the ideal buy zone, or probably rest back to your 2150 DMA, and then it can be ideally looked at. Today's move was pretty good, as you can see. It just didn't move higher by around 8%, but even the look at the volume bar is much higher than your average volume. So, which is a really good sign. So, I mean, someone would have probably caught the stock around the pivot, or probably holding the stock at earlier levels, can continue to hold on to the stock, because your RS line is hitting new highs. That is blue, the blue dot is visible. So overall price volume action for the stock is pretty good. Uh, Keep your 21 DMA as a trailing stop loss line for yourself. or even a slightly aggressive guy probably can keep the 50 DMA line as well. The other is ABB India.
Yeah, I'll just add a couple of pointers on Sanghvi, Vakar,
Yeah,
just to
sure,
add a
sure.
couple of pointers.
Sure.
See, this is again a classical substitute for the entire infra story, right? Action construction equipment is in the similar domain like Sanghvi movers, more in terms of construction equipment, material handling, so on and so forth. And ACE has given fabulous returns. Obviously, a larger market cap company as well. But to that extent, as Vakar also mentioned, for Sanghvi movers, a large element in terms of a lot of additions that they have done in the past 1 year. They've added on to a fleet by putting in a reasonable amount of capex. Their utilization levels have improved. The only thing which is a little circumspect is the lower market cap that Vakar spoke about. In terms of the management quality, I think the institutional investors are not really, too gung-ho, because that is clearly seen. If you look at the fund holding in the summary sheet, institutions make a very minuscule portion of Sanghvi movers. So even if it's in the same domain, I think what is largely happening is the earnings pedigree of its relatively better known competitor or peer, Ace Construction, probably stands out. Sanghvi is delivering on numbers, so there is no two ways about it, right? Margins around 55-58%, PAT margins at 20-22%, debt is not too significant. So yeah, the ideal strategy here is either wait for a pullback again for a fresh entry, because I think it's a stage 2 breakout, right, guys? If I'm not mistaken, as I recollect, it's a stage 2 breakout. So I think it's a very good breakout from a stage perspective itself. So either a pullback or anybody holding at lower levels can hold out, but you need to have pullbacks. But these stocks are massive momentum players, right? Because you look at the volumes today for Sanghvi movers, and look at that bar that has got created. I think this is one of the best volumes in the past 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, whatever, as I can see it. Even if you would plot it on a weekly thing, I think this is one of the best volumes that at least I have seen for Sanghvi movers. So I think in that context, you should probably take that in context. Vakar, you are discussing ABB. Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the inputs. So again, a story of related to the infra domain in India, and as you can see, the stock came up with its recent results not being reflected at the moment. So last night it came up with the results, and it was a very good set of numbers. I mean, it was beat probably on all the fronts if we talk about it. And similarly, you can see in today's move as well. I mean, the initial breakout for the stock probably a month back in the April start wasn't that good. You can see probably it failed to probably break out from the cup with handle base. Because there might be some kind of jitters regarding the result, that how well the company can probably deliver the result. It went down, tested its 21 DMA, broke its 50 DMA as well for some point. But as you can look at it, it reclaimed its 50 and the 200 DMA on above average volume. So that on a price volume action was a really good thing. And today's action probably cements that previous moves, that okay, the results are going well for the company. Price volume action is probably going well for the company. The stock broke out on above average volumes, and overall, the fund holding for the stock is improving. Return on equity at 21% is probably one of the best at the moment. So for its peers, and overall a very good stock. Someone probably holding at the pivot, because currently the stock has crossed your ideal buy zone. So someone holding around the pivot can again probably keep your 2150 DMA as your trailing stop losses, and if one is holding the stock, can continue to hold the stock.
Thanks, Vakar. So there are a couple of, I think, 2-3 queries related to the hotel stocks. I will take cover one and we'll discuss general about the hotels stock. So over here, we saw that Indian hotel broke out from a stage 4 consolidation base. So it's generally a little higher stage base than what we look for. We are very comfortable with stage 1 and 2. a little less comfortable with stage 3, but if all other conditions are okay, we sometimes do consider stage 3. But yes, as far as the stage 4 is concerned, we try to avoid it because that's a too higher stage. And once a stock starts falling from that stage, the fall can be a bit sharp from there. So that's why we tend to avoid, because there are a lot of options in the market. And here also, it's currently trading in its ideal buy zone, but yes, the breakout is from the higher stage base. Now, if you look at the fundamentals, that has improved a lot in the last few quarters. The scenario, the entire scenario for this industry has changed after the COVID, and the way the occupancy has increased, the average revenue rent per room has increased a lot. Their margins are improving, right? Plus, जो demand supply का थोड़ा mismatch है अभी, because as far as the India is concerned, right, there is a huge demand for the hotels, a lot of events in India. So generally, thoda premium hotel. Even now, the leisure traveling is at a high. The IPL हो रहा है, women का IPL हुआ, अभी men's का चल रहा है, ठीक है, World Cup आएगा, so there are sports event. Plus, we are the host of G20 this time, ठीक है, तो वहाँ से भी एक demand आएगा. And on an addition, so this will be the first full year after the COVID का जो इम्पैक्ट कम हुआ टूरिज्म पे, तो उसकी वजह से जो फॉरेन टूरिज्म है, जो लोकल टूरिज्म है, वहां पे भी एक स्पाइक या फिर प्री कोविड लेवल पे आने का ये इस टाइम आ सकता है. So overall, the entire scenario for the hotel industry is really good, and that's what getting reflected in the numbers as well as in the chart. I think most of the companies are doing really well. But yes, chasing a higher stage basis is something you should try to avoid. But overall, as the growth story remains very strong, so what you need is a good technical entry point that needs to be given. Otherwise, Indian hotel ka dekho to their expansion plans are also very good. Not only the Indian hotel, the entire industry as a whole. But I think the Indian hotel might be adding somewhere around 10,000 rooms over the next 4 years. So currently, उनका कुछ 21-22,000 room का net है. So वहाँ पे almost 50% का growth is expected in all the segment. अगर ताज में देखो, the luxury one, even their economy and upscale premiums जो कि जिंजर और विवांता है, वहां पे भी हर जगह पे ये लोग रूम ऐड कर रहे हैं. सो आई थिंक इन नेक्स्ट 3-4 ईयर रेवेन्यू विल बी एक्सीलेंट. सो पूरा इंडस्ट्री एक अप साइकिल में है, एंड दिस माइट कंटिन्यू लाइक एटलीस्ट फॉर नेक्स्ट 2-3 years. Looking at the events, looking at the numbers, looking at the way the fundamentals are improving, this might remain strong. But yeah, it's just about the technicals. Once the base get reset, you see some correction over here and there, or some pullback to 50 or 200 DMA. And once rebound from there, then again it might be in a very comfortable position as far as the technicals are concerned. So अभी स्टेज की वजह से थोड़ा हमको एक्सटेंडेड लग रहा है. बाकी ग्रोथ स्टोरी वाइज एज अ इंडस्ट्री, the hotel industry is good. As a stock, the growth drivers are intact for the Indian hotels. No two ways about it. So there are a few questions which are related to the portfolio, and there's one question that lack of follow through day is a concern. So what is the risk model portfolio by turning on the buy switch before the follow through day? See, we have turned on buy switch after considering a lot of factors, after considering the broader market, the movement in the leading stocks, the breakouts, सारी चीजें हमने consider की, the key moving averages in the market, and after then and only we have turned on the buy switch. And when we turned on the buy switch, even today, we always raise this concern around the follow through day, that yes, we are waiting for a follow through day to be aggressive. Generally, whenever the market is in such a good rally mode, we tend to have 12, 14, 15 stocks in the portfolio. But currently we are somewhere around half of that number, and that's where we try to add only the stock which are very convincing. The stories, the fundamentals, the growth drivers बहुत convincing है अगर हमको लगता है, then and only then we keep it. Now coming to the risk management, the stop loss, we are always very much concerned about the risk management and the stop loss. कोई भी market हो, अभी का क्या, इतना भी rally वाला बाजार हो, we keep 8% as our strict stop loss. And in these kind of market, we also look at the 21 DMA, the 50 DMA, okay? And that's how we manage our risk and we use the stop loss. Plus, there was one more question which is related to portfolio. कि अगर follow through day, if the follow through is not came, should we book the profit and should we book a partial profit? So yes, I think what we if the stock is about 20% in the gain, then we have advised in one of our stock to book the partial profit. And if you are getting a decent profit, then it's always good to book the partial, to use the pyramiding strategy in adding as well as the removing the stocks, right? You can always book the partial profit. There is no problem in that. Yes, it's the 29th day we are waiting for follow through day, but sometime in such a situation it happens. So it's, but yeah, overall we are concerned that the fall, because generally जो बड़ा rally होता है वो follow through day के बगैर चालू नहीं होता है. Not only in India but globally we have seen that. But sometimes there are always exceptions. So let's see what happens this time. But we are managing that. That's not a problem.
Rushit, just a couple of pointers, if I may add. See, what is happening in the US is more in terms of the regional banking mess, right? And it's more in terms of the ALM mess, which means that the kind of bond yield movement that happened in the US and the parking of funds that happened by these regional banks have created a run to the banks. And therefore, it's a US centric issue, more or less in terms of the ALM that has probably happened. Now, the central government, which is their federal government, and the regulator have rushed to their rescue. But completely, I think what is now happening is one, debt ceiling again coming back to the US, the 31 trillion that you are talking about, maybe reborrowing at a refinancing or reborrowing at a rate, and then maybe having this debt ceiling crisis resolved. The second element is what we have been reading through our global reports, our own reports and global reports as well, in terms of the mortgage slowdown that you're seeing, and an evident slowdown in the US market, right? So the consumption patterns are definitely going down. But within that real estate sphere itself, I think there have been certain exposures in terms of the CDS market. So there, I think there might be some element of choppiness that might come through. And in terms of some credit card defaults as well, because even credit card debt, along with student loans, which is also a significant component of almost $1 trillion or $2 trillion odd dollars, I think that keeps on adding in terms of the added elementary risks that the markets have. Europe is in a tough zone right now, no two ways about it. Europe will still keep on hiking rates because core inflation is extremely sticky out there. In the Indian context, RBI has done a very smart move of holding on to the rates. And in all probabilities, I think the rate hikes are behind us, at least in the Indian context. Now, the only headwind that India, from a macro perspective, that it faces is largely the El Nino. And if there is a deficiency in terms of the average rainfall, and the agencies have still pegged it, even if it's deficient, anywhere around 88-90%. And one of the agencies has said that it might not even be that bad, right? So fingers crossed for that. If we do not witness that, rural economy should start coming back very, very smartly. Government is obviously going to spend very, very aggressively. And if that happens, I think the core food inflation, which is getting reflected in CPI, and generally the CPI inflation, should start coming down. Now, whether RBI will start initiating a rate cut, waiting for when the Fed will do, because Fed will take a long time. Powell has made it very, very clear yesterday that unless inflation comes close to the 2% mark, no way that you're looking at a rate cut. So you're looking at a higher rate for a longer period of time. But whether RBI will do that, right, in the Indian context, my own sense is that if there is no El Nino, if the production is quite reasonable, and as inflation starts cooling off, and it starts coming even close to that 4%, right? We're almost at 5.2, 5.3, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's a matter of a few months. With general elections at Feb and March happening in our country, and if all these assumptions and conditions hold true, we might be the first central banker, in my opinion, to actually have rate cuts done, probably before the end of this year itself, which can also be a huge impetus. So macros from a global perspective, where India is placed 100% better. You would have read it all. You would have seen the tweets. There is a 0% chance of recession in India, even if the whole globe might go through a pain. Does that mean that slowdown will not get hit in the Indian context? Oh, yes. I think if the entire globe goes through a slowdown, including the forced slowdown in America, in Europe, you will see some element in terms of an export crunch. But it might not reflect in terms of the significant deterioration in earnings. So I think what we have probably seen in the past and where we are placed right now with huge strong interest and macros holding up, I think we are better placed. Now, which sectors might do well? Capital goods, which is a reflection, right? We just mentioned, Vakar just mentioned ABB. We just mentioned a few stocks like NAS or Sanghvi Movers. Look at a stock like NCC as an example, right? Look at what that stock has done. In spite of the market move, I think it's a one-way rally that the stock has probably given from those pivot levels as well of around 98, 99, almost a couple of months back. So infra, capital goods still remain in focus. Selectively, BFSI absolutely remain in focus. PSU banks might again start hogging the limelight to a certain extent. Some power utility companies, they also come on sector rotation on Pandre as we spoke about. And therefore, I think these pockets of strength might continue. IT has shown resilience in these numbers, specifically mid-cap IT, leave the large-cap IT space. Hotel stocks, like Rushit was just discussing, fabulous set of numbers that hotel stocks have delivered so far. NBFCs, numbers of Shola were excellent. You're looking at numbers of M&M Financials, which are expected to be good. Tire makers can be in a good position as well because of input costs going down. You saw the numbers of MRF. My belief is that a lot of tire makers will keep on posting good set of numbers with strong domestic and export recovery expected as well. Specifically the domestic player with input costs coming down and volume recovery happening both in OEM replacement. And therefore pockets of the market can really do well in the Indian context. So my sense is that focusing on the strengths, as we always said, O'Neill, which sectors are attaining leadership, maintaining that leadership position, and at what stage that leadership position will change, right? That through our industrial classification rank list is very, very evident. The second element obviously is also that when the sector rotation will happen for that sector, is there a significant down move that is happening in terms of volume activity as well over a periodicity of time, looking at the daily and the weekly charts? And if there are breaches of moving averages where other sectors are gaining, both through the industry classification list, through the Pandey sector rotation and these indicators as well, we'll always get the flavor in terms of the shift or the tectonic rebalancing that probably happens within few sectors, and which stocks within those attain leadership position for the next cycle of the bull run to happen. So I think keeping all this in mind, our take is that you should be very, very optimistic. Having said that, if the markets do correct, because as I see it, the DAX is correcting from its all-time high levels, there are concerns which will still play out, and the volatility might again come back because of global concerns. We have to be ready for that. And when we are ready for that, I think the key parameter that we keep on pushing through our learning articles, right? In cases like these, monitor the sector, monitor the index, the sector, and the stock, right? How are the averages getting placed? Is there a breach that is happening? Is the breach happening on heavy volumes, which is an indication of institution activity? Are you witnessing any stalling days for the index, for the sector, for particular stocks? That again becomes a key indicator as point number 2 and 3. If averages are getting breached with extremely heavy volumes, and certain macro conditions are changing globally, which are affecting global markets, which will affect Indian markets as well, because we are not completely decoupled, right? To that extent, you will see repercussions happening, and therefore managing risks becomes extremely important. So I think that's the point that me, Rushan, and Vaka wanted to put forth. I took a little bit longer time, but I think it was essential because we need to put this through in terms of placement on how we look at market tops and market bottoms, which we have explained in our level 1 and level 2 programs. Rushan can take the next question.
Yeah, thanks, man. It was a lot of helpful for all the audience. Okay. So now let's go to a few more queries. There is a question on Krsnaa Diagnostics, and the user also wanted to know the overview of the diagnostic sector. See, overall, if you look at the technicals over here, not very strong. The stock was in a downtrend, but I think recently, only last month only, it reclaimed its key moving averages. So the result has not been consistent, especially the earnings. The earnings momentum is not that great for the stock. Even the EPS is poor, and there is a lot of competition. ये sector है ना, इसमें एक तो low entry barrier. That's what being a case which is discussed everywhere. There is a very low entry barrier in this sector. Plus, the bigger players are very strong. You can see Dr. Lal, Pathlep, Aerocare, Metropolis. They are very, very strong. प्लस अभी जो टाटा रिलायंस ये सब लोग और प्लस अदर प्लेयर्स भी आए हैं काफी सारे इन द मार्केट. So that has disrupted the market. The test cost is down by some 60, 70, 80%. So if you take a test through Tata 1mg in their lab, the routine test which cost you, let's say for example, 1,000 rupees on for Dr. Lar or other lab, is they are providing it at 200, 250 rupees. So जो market में पूरा disruption आया है ना, ये वो वाला diagnostic के लिए जियो वाला movement है पूरा, कि जो 1 GB का इतना पैसा देते थे. आई रिमेम्बर फ्यू इयर्स बैक 150-200 रुपीज फॉर अ GB. सो अभी उसमें पूरा महीना चल जाता है, 2-3 GB डेली का. ठीक है. सो दैट इज द मूवमेंट. सो वन थिंग, एक जो ये दिस इज अ हेडविंड, राइट, कि मार्जिन पे प्रेशर रहेगा, कॉम्पिटिटिवनेस वेरी हाई. बट parallelly there is also a tailwind, because if you see the growth, the penetration इतना नहीं है, इतना awareness नहीं था, but after the COVID the penetration is increasing, the awareness to take the tests are increasing, right? Plus जो market है उसमें अभी भी around 45 to 50% एक standalone players है, which are not a chain or listed players, या फिर कोई बड़ी chain नहीं है जो single आपके which you find around your society, which you find you around your area, especially if you are in a tier 2 or tier 3 city, right? So almost 45 to 50% of the market, जो पूरा diagnostic sector है, वो standalone labs के पास है, and from there, these big players have a very good chance to gain the market share. So gaining the market share, first reason under penetrated market है, second reason standalone players से लेने में काफी easy हो रहा है इन लोगों के लिए, because of their quality, the standards that are giving, the awareness for the brands that are improving in the country. So healthcare में भी वही हो रहा है, and plus their expansion plans. तो ये सारी बड़ी labs हैं, उनके expansion plans भी बहुत aggressive है, organic as well as inorganic on both the fronts. So एक जो market है, ये उनके लिए एक बड़ा tailwind है. On the flip side, the headwind is the margins, the competitiveness pressure. Overall, agar if you see this segment, the diagnostic, one is the radiology, second is the pathology. Abhi 42% is around the radiology of the entire market, and somewhere around 55 to 60% is the pathology. And I think Krsnaa has a very good share in the radiology market. And overall also the company's share is increasing in the market. But yes, it needs to come up with the earnings. The scenario should change. जो हम tailwinds की बात कर रहे हैं, ठीक है, that should be visible in the result. And headwinds जो कि हम बात कर रहे हैं, margin पे pressure आएगा, competitiveness का pressure, वहां से थोड़ा एक ease दिखना चाहिए. So these are the two things that needs to be watch out in the diagnostic sector. And so need to kill some time to how the things react. Otherwise, growth story wise, in the long term, it's not a problem for the sector. But yes, the short term disruptions are there, and you need to be known and very careful about those things. So okay, let's move to the next question.
Rushit, can I take some queries?
Sure.
So can you give me the chart for Raymond? So what Rushit was probably pointing out that at the moment the stock is forming a stage 5 base, so a very high stage base, and which is prone to failure. And if you look at the movement around the pivot, it's kind of dicey. I mean, it did broke out on above average volume, but the next day the stock fell down on above average volume. So which is moved back into the base, so which is not a good sign. The last quarter result for the stock wasn't that good. It's probably that is what is hammering the EPS rating. And if one probably would have been holding on to the stock from earlier stage basis, maybe probably a second stage base or a third stage base, your 50 DMA probably during the rally, probably 50 DMA was the line, the sync line that probably held up very well for the stock. The stock did, even if it breached, it reclaimed it very fast on above average volume. So if look at the price volume action around the 21 DMA or the 50 DMA for the stock, probably who are holding onto the stock from the earlier stage basis, if it breaks down on probably like if you're handsomely holding profits onto the stock and you want to safeguard your stock, well, look at the action around the 21 DMA. If the stock reaches 21 DMA on above average volume, move out. If you still feel I mean the growth story is probably intact with this stock and you have a slightly higher risk appetite, then look for similar actions around your 50 DMA. The other we can look at is Mtar. So the stock did break out from the consolidation based on above average volumes. Currently, is trading at the higher end of your buy zone. I mean, people who have it in their, I mean, in the right buy watch list should keep the stock in the buy watch list. Overall, very good stock. I mean, if it comes back to the pivot, if retraces back to the pivot, can hold on to the stock. Overall, last three quarter result have been good. That's what has pushed the EPS rating for the stock as well. Your RS line is hitting new highs. That is why the blue dot is there. So overall, the price volume action for the stock is good. And on the right hand side of the base, you could see some big blue bars coming in. Not frequent blue bars, but yes, a little bit of more frequent blue bars would have probably uh, put confidence more into this rally of the stock. But still, if it comes back to the pivot, one can still have a look at it. People holding into the stock earlier should again keep the 21 DMA or the 50 DMA as their I mean, the stop loss line for themselves. The other we can look at is Aster DM. So on the fundamental front, the stock is trying to recover in the last 3 to 4 quarters. Probably why the rating hasn't picked up, it's more because of the erraticness in between and probably the earlier results. Yes, that's what Rushik pointed out. From March 20 to your June 21, the results weren't that good, and that is why probably the stock needs, in terms of your earning momentum, needs to do a lot more catch up in terms of what the grounds it had lost in the previous couple of years. And similarly, the stock is probably forming a cup with handle base at the moment, and you can see like one of your the breakouts wasn't successful, and it in the day's candle it closed near the lows, so which is not at all a good sign. I mean, at this moment, considering your EPS rating and plus uh, the price volume action around the pivot, it's not that much encouraging at the moment. If probably even for this quarter, if the company delivers on really good results, plus your price volume action picks up, then later on probably one can have a look at this stock.
Thanks, Vakar. There is a question related to Coromandel International. So the stock is forming a stage 1 consolidation base, and it's a good day to ask the question. Today reclaimed its 200 DMA on a really strong volume, almost 189% higher than the average volume. So it's a decent volume. It's still 11% to pivot. RS rating is a little weak. 51 का RS rating थोड़ा weak है, and it needs time. थोड़ा जो ये 10-11% का gain है, if it comes on a higher volume, if this gain comes on a higher volume over here, and the RS improves, as well as you can see some big blue bars over here, then the breakout, after the breakout, it will be a ideal entry point. The stock has a very good ROE of 22%. The numbers have been consistent, and there is an N factor. So canceling में जो N factor का हम बात करते हैं, the stock is entering into the new growth segments, and I think जो specialty industries and chemicals है, then there is a contract development manufacturing, CDMO है, CPC है, crop protection का business है, वो भी expand कर रहे हैं, and the company will be investing somewhere around 1,000 crore in these businesses. So CPC is a very good segment. It currently accounts around 15 to 70% of the Coromandel's revenue, and the further expansion will be really good for the companies. Also, the CDMO, that's a growing segment, and once the company is well on track with the new business, that can add to top line as well as the bottom line, because that will be a little on the higher side. The margins will be on the higher side. Plus the good part is that कि ये लोग expansion हो रहा है, but इनका 1700 करोड़ का cash है इनके पास अपने books पे. So I think 1200 करोड़ का अगर ये काम करेंगे, so they still remain debt free with a net cash of 500-700 crore. That's not a problem for the company. So overall, I think the outlook is decent as far as the growth drivers are concerned. Even the current business, if you can see the current manufacturing, the fertilizers and the current business, जो अभी input cost है इनके लिए थोड़े कम हो गए हैं. That is very positive for these companies because the gas prices have come a bit down. Even the other input cost has moderated. So even on the margin front, so from this quarter or from the next quarter, इनके margin भी improve हो सकते हैं, and that's a positive for the fertilizer industry as well as the Coromandel International, both. So, yeah, but technically you need to wait for some good momentum as far as the technicals are concerned. It just reclaim its 200 DMA. So first thing to watch out is if it remains above that level, and if it is able to remain above that level, then let it complete the base formation. Okay, so other one is the Tata Group companies. Question is on Tata Power. I think the result was today. It just came while I think we were discussing. So
I'm just looking at the results, so
yeah,
you'll have to give us time.
Speaking, I was also just saw the headlines. It looks like the PAT is above the estimate, but we still need to look deeper into the result. But yeah, overall, the setup wise, अभी technically काफी damage है. It needs to improve. With 200 DMA, so almost the stock is 5 to 6% below the 200 DMA. So I think if results are really excellent, it might soon reclaim its 200 DMA. And the aggressive entry not suggested till the time the base formation is complete. एक बार एक basing process से जाता है stock एक proper cup with handle या फिर you can say consolidation base बनाता है यहाँ पे. After that, when it breaks out, that is the ideal time. What I'm speaking is about the ideal time according to owning methodology to go out, look out for in the stock. Plus, what I don't like over here is the relative strength. That's really, really poor. 34 is not an ideal one. Buyer demand B is okay, but you need better. The EPS is fair, 77, but I think if the result keeps on improving, the earnings keep on improving within next couple of quarters, we will be very comfortable. But yeah, 77 is fair enough. But two things over here, one is the relative strength and second is the price, which should be about 200 DMA or a base formation.
I mean, I was having a quick look at the results. I think generation का कुछ तो top line miss हुआ है. Transmission is still okay. They are running on to the renewable capacity, which means renewable should have a reasonable chunk over the next few years. Let's see. I mean, I still have to look at the results in detail. It's just those first 7-8 slides that I saw. But you can take a few of these queries. Let me just quickly discuss. I was just seeing this. Viral had asked a question on a few pipe companies. So Maharashtra Seemless had fabulous order wins last time round. Leaders in the ERW pipes, what you're also looking at in terms of seamless pipes, has significant capacity. In terms of capex spends, I think that will keep on happening, which means order wins will keep on happening for this company. Margins have been relatively stable. On the O'Neill charts, again, I think you have to wait because if you probably look at the down bar that has got created, even if it's with a lower volume than most averages, it still has to cross that pivot. और वो pivot क्या stage 3 है क्या Maharashtra Seamless का? I'm not too sure.
It's 4.
So again, it's a late stage. So we need to wait because we have been time and again mentioning this. Stage 4, stage 5 normally might succumb to profit booking because of the overextension and the kind of rallies that they have seen. J. Kumar Infra, again, similar story in terms of infrastructure development. They've got a reasonable amount of order book. Execution for most companies in this space have been reasonable. They've been winning reasonable amount of orders as well over the past few quarters. But again, I think it has a significant move already from its key pivot levels. So either a pullback towards its 50 DMA on low volumes, which can become an alternate entry point. But we will have to wait for that because we can't just rush into this and then probably repent if the stock probably reverses quite significantly because it's overextended from its pivot level. So again, I think these learnings that we put forth are useful. There might be outliers to some of these learnings, and exceptions will always be there. But a large part of the consensus that we've seen historically, I think it probably moves on those grounds. For Gujarat Ambuja exports, I think one of the top counters which was chased right during the COVID periods, and they did manage to deliver a reasonable set of numbers at that point of time. Like J. Kumar extended from its pivot at this point of time, it has to give a pullback. Now the 50 DMA is relatively far, but again, if it gives a pullback on lower volumes to its 21 or the 200 DMA, maybe some alternate points. But waiting for a perfect base creation might be appropriate for these companies because the structure itself looks a little bit haphazard in this case because they've moved away from pivot and significantly away from key pivot levels as well. So wait for pullbacks towards key and the nearest moving averages, the closest one being the 50-day or the 200-day moving average for either of these cases. So the light on Gujarat-based companies, I think the capital allocation policy that they've done. Now, most central PSUs already have a central PSU policy, guys, where they have to mandatory out of their profits, if it's a profit-making entity, generate 30% as dividend payout. So to that extent, it's fine in terms of the regulation that has come for dividend payouts. In terms of buybacks and in terms of the net worth position that these companies have on their balance sheet, will clearly determine how minority shareholders will get rewarded. And it's a very, very good move, in my opinion. Now, when you place these companies, right, GNFC, GSFC, and GMDC probably fits the bill for most of these criteria that have got placed for net worth, in terms of buyback requirement, for the dividend payouts, in terms of profitability, and the cash and bank reserves that they have, and the expectations of the cash flows that they'll generate from their existing firms. Now, GSFC becomes a holding company where most of Gujarat state entities are probably under it. I think it's an overall 4,900 crore market cap company where investments in subsidiaries, including GNFCs, including the other Gujarat state-owned utility, I mean the public enterprise or the state enterprise firms, almost account for 60% of its market cap or even more. So any action which happens in terms of buybacks, dividends, GSFC will be an indirect beneficiary of the same. Similarly, for GMDC, I think it satisfies most criteria. Again, the kind of lithium lignite reserves that it has got, right? And the rare earth minerals, the consultancy study that is happening for GMDC, like the one you found in JNK, right? They've already found out some extractable reserves in its mines. And if that probably starts gaining fruition over the next few quarters and years, you will see exponential movement in terms of top line growth. And it can be a big N factor when it comes to GMDC. GNFC also satisfies most criteria. Again, in terms of the spaces that they operate out and the product mix, I think it's there. And to that extent, when you're probably looking at the entire structure on how all these policy announcements will affect these companies, it should affect them positively. And as an investor or a shareholder, I think the payout should be relatively better because of the sheer balance sheet strength that they've got. So I think that's the crux that I wanted to discuss. Rohit, before Rushit or Vakar answer the question, we've got our learning articles. In one of the learning articles, you will find out the basis for how we look at basis and how do you count basis and why early stage bases are important and noteworthy, and why late stage bases might be a little bit risky in that. So in the learning article section on the app or the site, you'll definitely find that. So Rishi, you can go ahead with the next page.
Okay, so I'll take one last question and then we'll close the session today. We should try to cover most of the queries, but yeah, that's always about the time. So yes, AC question is that, but I think Mayuresh has talked in detail about the AC and related companies. So let's discuss Ion Exchange.
We'll take 3 queries, Rushit. Take Ion Exchange. People
Okay.
had questions on Manappuram, Triveni from the portfolio part, and TD
Sure.
Power. So I think we can take these 4. Ion, Manappuram, Triveni, Turbine, and TD Power.
Okay. So yeah, Ion Exchange has made a fresh all-time high today. The stock is very close to ideal profit booking zone. I think it's just about that. The stage 4 se breakout hua tha, but this is again an outlier. After breaking out of the stage 4, it went higher, and again it couple of time it found support near its 50 DMA. So this is something very positive. जब भी stock breakout के बाद थोड़ा pullback लेता है and it finds support near the 50 DMA, that's positive. So here the stock has found a support at 50 DMA couple of times and it has rebounded again and again. So overall, if you look at the price volume action, that has been very, very healthy. So whenever the stock is moving higher, the volume has been very high. जब भी थोड़ा consolidate होता है या नीचे जाता है, the volume starts to dry up, and this is something good to look over here. The fund holding excellent, 80% growth in the last quarter, and the ROEs of 20% plus the recent 4-quarter result. If you see, there's no issue over there. So overall, it's a good stock, but you need to wait for a base reset or some pullback to key moving averages. So yeah, Manappuram, as a disclaimer, this was the part of our portfolio till yesterday, but yesterday during the day only we had cut our losses and around 4-5% loss on the cut kar liya hai. The reason being, see, the volume was very high when the stock reached its 21 DMA and the pivot level. So I think these 2 reasons were enough for us to remove the stock. So pivot level was somewhere around 125, 126. Even the 21 DMA was around the same level. And what happened, like during the day, the volume also came higher. That's the reason we moved out of the stock. So we are very strict with our rules, and once this happens, as far as the price volume action is concerned, reaching the key moving averages, we prefer to sit outside and exit the stock. Then again, I think there was some news flow around Manappuram Finance about some of the government agencies searching, and all the news flows were around that level. So this again becomes tricky. We always want to be away from the news, whether it's positive or negative. But whenever it's just a news-based thing, whenever there is no conclusion out of a search or the judgment, we try to avoid according to O'Neill methodology. So yesterday closing was very, very weak. We might have hit stop loss also. अगर कल intraday दिन में नहीं निकाला होता तो 8% stop loss भी लग जाता. High volume पे 50 DMA पे breach किया था. So that was again a sell signal. The good part for those who might be holding somewhere is that it rebound from the 200 DMA today and tried to reclaim its 50 DM and closed just above it. But yes, again today also the volume was high. So let's see how it performs ahead. If it re-breaks out and the things around these things settle, then we don't hesitate to re-enter the stock. अगर RS rating improve हो जाता है, high volume पे re-break out होता है, there's no some such confusion around the government agencies investigating news flow, वो सब बाहर हो जाता है, then we never hesitate to re-enter the stock. The next, Triveni Turbine. Again, a disclaimer, this remains on our portfolio. We added once when it broke out from stage 2 cup with handle base. The breakout was really good. No two ways about that. Even if you look at the fundamentals, that has been decent. The ROE of 32 is something excellent that you look for in a company. Plus, look at the number of fund holdings, 31% growth on a QOQ basis. Price strength is really good. In fact, the blue lines, the blue dots on the RS line near the breakout. So this is something what we like. The base formation was also decent. जब कब बन रहा था तब थोड़ा volume में dry up हो गया था. So this is something what we look for during the cup base formation. And we are very positive around the growth story of the company, right? The products that they are in, the equipment, the machinery that they are producing, there is a good chance of a good growth in their business. And we continue to hold it as of now. But here also we will use some volatility in the last 4-5 sessions. No two ways about that. But हाँ 21 DMA पे अच्छा support मिल गया. अगर आप green line देखें 21 DMA. So yesterday it found a very good support near that level, and today it rebounded from there. It continues to remain in an ideal buy zone, and till the time the stock is comfortably trading above its 21 and 50 DMA, we might continue to hold it. But yes, it's not a commitment from our side. This is just a general statement. Looking at the market condition, looking at the price volume action in the stock, we might also change the decisions. But yes, as of now, the key levels to watch out are 21 DMA on the and the 50 DMA on the lower side, and the stock currently trades in the ideal buy zone. Okay, so last one we take today is the TD Power. And yes, guys, anytime you can always email us the question. So that's not a problem. It's not like once the stock Durbar is over, you won't get an answer. But you can always email a question on our email ID, and we'll try to answer as quickly as possible on the email itself. So over here, 5th stage breakout, again a higher stage breakout, and should not be considered because it becomes very volatile. देखो यहाँ पे भी जैसे कप बना के भाग गया, हैंडल बाद में बना है इसी. So if you might have taken a position a bit on the higher side, यहाँ पे अगर position लिया है, then you might have got shaken out. But again, it found a very good support near its 50 DMA, and वहाँ से rebound होके then for many days it consolidated in a very tight zone, and again it's trying to move higher. But stage 5 days, we always tend to avoid the higher stage days. We discussed multiple times related to it. Otherwise, the story has been good. Right, again, the manufacturers of the electric motor, generator, transformer, and so these sectors this sector has been doing really well, and TD Power is one of the good performer in the sector. So no two ways about that. But yeah, technically it's too high stage base for according to only methodology to consider it. Okay, so that's it for today's session, guys. Thanks a lot, Mayuresh, Wakar, and everyone in the session. I hope it was useful to all of you. We might have missed a few queries, but yeah, that's what we have already extended 15 minutes from a committed time. So that's the reason we might miss some queries, but we try to answer as many as possible. And you can always email us and stay in touch. So regularly we are always online. So tomorrow also morning at 8:55 we'll be online for the pre-bell. You can join it and be updated with the latest market things, conditions, how the global market, how the Indian market is expected to open, the key news, everything. So we'll be every day we are online at 8:45 a.m. in the morning, and we also have our morning commentary and evening notes. So around 4:35 every day we post our evening notes, so you can read it and be updated with the market condition, the watch list, everything. That's it for today's session.